House nor the Senate want to be holding the ball when the clock strikes midnight on a government shutdown. Here now, two men who have been insiders in those key meetings during negotiations like this. Kurt Bardella, former press secretary for Congressman Darrell Issa, and Doug Thornell, former DCCC spokesperson. Welcome to you both.
Good to be here.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right, Doug, how heated is it behind doors right now? Because the House sent this measure early this morning over to the Senate. Basically, Harry Reid saying it's dead on arrival.
Right.
It's going to ping back to the House, we think. What next?
It'll ping back to the Senate and
first,
and then go back.
Say no, thank you.
Well, right now I don't think there's a lot of activity going on Capitol Hill, which is a little scary. But I think what's going to happen is that the Senate will strip out the language, make it a clean CR. I think people should understand that this is the CR level that Republicans voted on. It's at the sequester level. Democrats haven't insisted to raise that. It'll go back to the House. I'm not sure if there's time, though, for us to avoid at least a short government shutdown. I don't see how we avoid it.
And Kurt, there's been so much public sniping, not only between the Democrats and Republicans, but between Republicans, too. So what's happening with leadership behind closed doors right now, trying to figure out the next step in this process? Because it's not only legislative and substantive, there's a PR element to every bit of this, too.
Sure. Well, I think what you've seen in the last 48 hours is Republicans come together, unite behind a common message and a common strategy. And they believe at the end of the day, by listening to their constituents, because that's who they're listening to, that's what's dictating how the Republican caucus is moving, is the American people. And they have said to them, we don't want Obamacare. We know there are tons of problems in this thing that's going to take into effect in 3 days. We need to stop it right now. That's what they're doing. And it's up to the Senate now. And it says a lot right now that the Senate's not in session. You look out in Capitol Hill right now, no one's there. Why is that? Because Senator Reid, the majority leader, said no one needs to come in today. This isn't that big of a deal, apparently. So you hear a lot about urgency from the Democrats, but at the end of the day, you only hear about it on TV. Why aren't they doing their job right now on the Senate floor?
Well, and is it in part, Doug, because Democrats know if the government shuts down, most polling in history shows us the Republicans are going to get blamed?
Well, I think if you look at the polling right now, not just looking at historical precedent, that Republicans will be blamed. I think that most people do not want to defund Obamacare, and they certainly don't want to use it as a bargaining chip for keeping the government open. I mean, the president and Democrats, quite frankly, aren't asking for anything here. What we're asking is keep the government running at the levels that Congress voted on already. And we're not asking for conditions. We're not asking for, immigration reform. We're not asking for, a ban on AK-47s or any of the other things that Democrats really want. All we're asking for is let's just do no harm right now.
Well, and just for a factual point, I mean, the polling has been going in the wrong direction ever since the law passed and was getting implemented. I mean, not only by ours, but New York Times, CBS polling as well. I mean, it continues to show that people are increasingly skeptical about what this law is really going to mean. So if you say doing the will of the people, I mean, Republicans will argue that on that point, they're moving in the right direction.
Well, in San Diego today, a poll came out. In San Diego, a much more purple location right now. It's the 8th largest city in America. Just elected a Democrat mayor, sent a Democrat to Congress, taking on a Republican incumbent. 44-29 against Obamacare. 50-20 in favor of tying Obamacare defunding to the CR. So when you look at what's going on actually on the ground in places like San Diego and in places like Vermont and Connecticut, where it has been public that this exchange, this Obamacare implementation isn't going to work the way they said it would. This goes up on Tuesday, and the administration is having to concede. It's not going to work. They've amended it 19 times since the passage of Obamacare. They've changed, amend, or rolled back something. Is this really the right time right now to make a difference, to stop something bad from happening? Of course it is. It's Congress's responsibility when they see a public policy disaster about to unleash on the American people to stop it, and that's what House Republicans are trying to do.
And Doug, you have to deal with the issue that one of the key Democrat architects of this over in the Senate himself said it was going to be a train wreck if it rolled out as it's presently in its present form.
Well, first of all, a lot of it has been implemented. Right now we have 16 million young kids with insurance on their parents' plan. We've got kids with pre-existing conditions who now have coverage. You've got seniors who are paying less for prescription drugs. So a lot of things have gone right here with the bill. And with the exchanges, you're talking about if you get rid of the individual mandate, which was a Republican idea, 11 million people will not have care. And San Diego is actually a fairly Republican area too. So I think that if you look at that area, I'm not entirely sure if using just some city as an example is the best thing.
Looking at the national polling.
No, but I would grant you that it is divided. I'm certainly there's no overwhelming support for it. There's not really overwhelming opposition to it either, but there is overwhelming support for keeping the government running and not using Obamacare as a bargaining chip.
That is true, Kurt. I mean, the polls show us that. So quickly, final word to you on that.
I think at the end of the day, what people remember when it comes to November of 2014, they're not going to remember some random budgetary process question. They remember whether or not their health care premiums went up, whether it was harder for them to get care, whether or not they could keep good on the president's promise that if you like your care right now, that you can keep it after Obamacare passes. That's not going to be the case, and that's going to put a lot of Democrats in trouble.
We got to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you both. Good
Thanks
to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
All right, it is your turn to weigh in at home. We want to know what you think about the potential for a government shutdown. Do you favor a government shutdown in order to block Obamacare funding, or are you dreading the potential consequences of an actual shutdown? Tweet us your answers at ANHQDC or at Shannon Bream. We will read some of those later on in the show, so stick around. Dozens of Nigerian college students dead today, gunned down overnight in their dorm rooms.